Longer cooldowns engenders passivity because you have to have a bigger reward for the cooldown use, and there is more to lose by using it badly. They increase the cooldown by nade by 2 seconds. That so often reduces the amount of times that you want to use it proactively, that it makes it a lot more biased towards defensive use. Okay, right. Cooldowns aren't balanced. Who the hell knows what that means? Let's go.
Cooldowns. Fuck them. They ruin everything by slowing things down to a snail's pace. Imagine how great life would be without cooldowns. I didn't think about that part. Despite what the anarchists will have you believe, cooldowns are important, whether in life or games. They set a melodical place to every aspect of gameplay, creating windows of opportunity and moments of weakness to prey upon, and they even add a little management minigame to every character, turning abilities into a resource in and of themselves. If they're so great, then clearly that must be why so many companies use long cooldowns to balance the game out, right? Cooldowns are in a lot of games, but I'm mainly going to be looking at them through the lens of hero shooters. At least the ones that didn't get stabbed in the back. And I have my reasons for this focus, so to start with the main reason that we're here, cooldowns aren't balanced. Asterisk. Obviously, you need reasonable cooldown lengths to create a balanced game. Imagine if Tracer Recall had a 3-second cooldown. I don't need to explain these implications any further. Naturally, a character's cooldowns should be tied to the strength of the ability. But lads, we need to have some limits.
I think the clear point for me is there is no practical balance within a fight in terms of game feel for yourself or other people by making an ability, if it already is active once in a fight, making it active less often than that is kind of useless for the most part. It depends on the flow of a fight, not anything else in my opinion, and quite a lot of the time, like Baptiste Lamp going from 15 to 18 seconds, like what are you doing, right? There's clearly a problem with the ability. You need to fix the problem with the ability. Why are you doing numbers changes for fights that last more than 18 seconds? Like all of the problems still exist with the ability, and yet you're just changing it by bullshit, right? 30 seconds Soulborn cooldown on Adam. Oh yeah, like genuinely, absolute insanity. Just insanity. Just crazy. Like it only comes up once a fight. Well, oh, now it comes up once every 2 fights. We balanced it. What? What are you doing? Just balance for the individual engagements and balance the abilities to be engaging with them.
This is my main point and main idea. Giving an ability a long cooldown to match its power, while a sound concept isn't much of a sound practice. The best way to look at it is a real example, and just recently Overwatch had a textbook demonstration of it with their newest DPS, Freya. Now,
you balance the power by the hero's power budget for the most part, and you balance the cooldown by how often you want it to be up. That's basically how you do it.
Freya, honestly, incredibly well-designed character. She's just overbearing right now. Players were bad at her during her trial, she got overbuffed, and now she's on top of the meta. How do you fix this? It could be a damage nerf, but I would say reducing the time she spends in the air is the way to go, since half the cast just can't interact with her most of the time. The main issue isn't her mobility frequency, though she definitely is a little bit too mobile. The big issue is that she has an easy to execute, consistent one-shot combo on most of the cast, combined with having some insane mobility uptime. So how was this addressed in a recent patch? They added 0.5 seconds to her dash cooldown, a 14% increase. And to be fair, this was needed. Compared to her trial state, the cooldown is still shorter, and back then it was too long. But regardless, this is what I mean by cooldowns aren't balanced. Just increasing the length of time it takes for a character to use their ability that is clearly proving too strong does nothing but slow down their gameplay and makes them less enjoyable, while not tackling the actual issue people are having with
Yeah, and I will agree that Freya's uptime in the air is problematic, but actually changing her cooldown to be longer and longer, 4.5 seconds now, they changed it again, is only making her feel worse to play while not making it so that it's better to play against her. Right? Like, you've functionally made it so she can insta-kill somebody once in a fight now. Well, sure, that does reduce the win rate, and it does reduce the win rate at the high level and how useful a character is at the high level. But, like, they're still going to be bursting you for damage, like a shitload of damage once per fight, and that still feels awful to play against, even if it's happening less often.
Sticking with Overwatch, another, honestly, clearer example of this happened a little while ago with Ana, where they increased the cooldown of her nade by 2 seconds, which in a 5v5
once per fight is once per fight is once per fight. I mean, what are we talking about here, guys? Like, why are you doing these changes? These are percentage-based win rate changes that don't functionally change much about the hero.
5Q brought it up to 14 seconds from 12, or a 17% increase. I did just say it, but I will repeat myself. Increasing the cooldown of a powerful ability does not nerf it, it just makes it less fun to use. Because I don't think Onanate taking 14 seconds to come back instead of 12 is a big killer to its strength. It's just annoying when playing as Ana because your uses end up...
I will also say, on top of this, longer cooldowns engenders passivity because you have to have a bigger reward for the cooldown use, and there is more to lose by using it badly. So it makes you use them less proactively. So like all of these things where they just keep like they're like, wow, it's great to use it so aggressively. They increase the cooldown by nade by 2 seconds. That so often reduces the amount of times that you want to use it proactively. Essentially, like obviously nade's a bad example because nade is completely different effect on aggressive use and defensive use. You always will use it aggressively regardless, but it makes it a lot more biased towards defensive use.
Limited. You want to save the ability for the perceived most optimal moment. Plays that involve less risk, like saving yourself or a tank, rather than plays that could actually end up having a higher impact, like nading the enemy support to help with a dive, or even throwing it out for your ulting DPS to keep them alive mid-fight.
Jesus Christ. Is this guy actually intelligent? What happened to the rest of the Overwatch community? Jesus Christ. What is this? Somebody actually saying the same things as me? For once in the world? Who sent this? Can you send me more of this stuff?
While you reload. Remember, your abilities are effectively a resource. And what is a tendency that people have when faced with a resource which is limited? They hoard it. You see it most commonly in games that house...
He doesn't cook all the time?
consumable items. Think Ethers in Final Fantasy, SP Restoration in any SMT game. But honestly, any resource in any game that could be considered rare or limited counts. I mean, even in hero shooters, the easy example is ultimates. You only get your ult a few times per game, resulting in a lot of players saving their ultimates for the game's second sequel when facing this rare resource. The exact same concept applies.
But with ultimates, it's stopped because it's very obvious to you that you are losing value by not getting ult charge when you shoot someone when you've got it as full, right? That's the only thing that stops people saving it forever, and even then it doesn't work, right? Like the fact that you can't generate ult charge when you have your ult is such a big disincentive to hold it, and yet people still hold it.
To abilities that end up having too long of a cooldown, effectively abilities that are made to be too rare. And on that, if an ability is too powerful...
And I will say, it's not just psychology. It's not just psychology. It is practically what is actually good to do with the ability changes when the cooldown length and the strength of the ability changes.
Only way to balance it is a long cooldown. We probably have an ability that's too powerful in general. I mean, Baptiste's Immortality Field has a 25-second cooldown, and it took years for it to get to a point where it can be described as balanced, and even then players still...
Because it still shouldn't be a 25-second cooldown. It's absolute insanity that this ability is 25-second cooldown. It makes it so you never use it apart from to save someone's life. Ever. You never use it aggressively in any way, shape, or form. You cut this cooldown in a third and decrease the amount of damage reduction it does by like half, and it becomes an aggressive tool to use proactively. It completely changes the incentive reward on the character.
Dislike this ability, and I'll come back to this in a while. As a general rule, I would say that a strong ability should only be seen once or twice per fight, with some flexibility for pre- and post-fight uses, with the cooldown reflecting this. Depending on the character and the general pace of their gameplay, taking their strong ability and allowing for it to be used in pre-fight skirmishes...
It depends on a lot of things. It depends on the flow of the kit in general, how well the kit's knitted together, how strong the ability is. There's a load of different things.
And letting that cooldown come back online in time for the actual battle should be the aim in most cases. And while I am focusing on hero shooters, the general idea would apply in other genres that feature cooldowns. Take MOBAs, the genre that inspired a lot of hero shooters. Obviously, longer cooldowns are at play, simply because the time to kill in these games is far longer than a shooter, and in general there is just a higher power level. For example, Rory, it's his strongest ability.
Did MOBAs inspire hero-based shooters? I thought TF2 was around ages before MOBAs. That's not true, is it?
Aside from his ultimate, and it starts as a 15-second cooldown because a damage reduction and fear in one ability is extremely powerful in early game fights. So unless used early in one, it probably won't have the time to come back online during it. But as points are put into it, it goes down to 11 seconds to match the power of the game at later stages, where the time to kill begins to decrease. So this cooldown is always matching the power level while still allowing it to be used before either side commits to the fight to try and gain some amount of an advantage. I mean, there are even fighting games with cooldowns, but there was a large asterisk next to...
Maybe it was before TF2. I thought like Team Fortress, though, the concept of hero-based shooter is older. I do agree that modern hero-based shooters are focused on hero or like inspired by the development on MOBAs, and MOBAs got developed a lot faster than hero-based shooters got developed in terms of concept. So like, I kind of agree with that, but yeah.
Take any Smash game which has staling, where repeated use of the same move will weaken its damage and knockback, encouraging players to use other moves instead of spamming their strongest one constantly. Absolutely not a cooldown in the traditional sense, but it's bordering on it. There are other workarounds to implementing these strong ability cooldowns as well. Certain abilities have the cooldown start once it's pressed, instead of waiting for it to finish. Take Soldier's Heal or Hammond's Shields, so the effect of a longer cooldown isn't felt as much. And there can even be exceptions to this still. Staying in Overwatch, you have Lifeweaver's Pull, currently at 18 seconds, and I do not see this ever going.
Very true that the psychological impact of making the cooldown start immediately is a lot better than the opposite.
Below it, even though that makes it an ability you will not see more than once per fight, or even before.
I remember when we did the May rework and we changed the wall. We changed it so it was a flat 10 seconds when the wall came down instead of when it went up. And I did consider that to be a quality of life reduction for the character, but I also considered it to be well, if May's going to be a tank and we're going to be seeing this wall a lot, then what we want to do is we want to make it really predictable for enemies as to when the cooldown comes back up.
Mostly for the mental sanity of players on both teams, because all players in the lobby hate Lifeweaver Pull. As cool as that ability is, it's a mess. But there is another angle that cooldown-based balancing can take, which I'll just preface, I don't like this one either.
It's not a mess. To be honest, people hate in-combat Lifeweaver pulls, whether they're allied or enemies. Out of combat Lifeweaver pulls, people don't hate in any way, shape, or form, in my opinion. Or aggressive Lifeweaver pulls, people don't hate in any way, shape, or form when they're out of combat. If you are out of combat and a Lifeweaver pulls you, the majority of the time you're absolutely fine with it. So that's essentially what we've done. We've disincentivized it from being used aggressively out of combat or before combat by increasing the cooldown by such a ridiculous degree. It's why with our rework, what we did is we made it so that the cooldown halves itself if you pull somebody on and more than half health. Right? We've incentivized it to be used more aggressively outside of combat before or during a fight.
But it's not something seen in Overwatch, so we need to move over to pretty much the only other hero shooter that matters in the current space, Marvel Rivals. Lads, I love Paladins, but let me tell you, a corpse can always be fresher. So what is Marvel Rivals' approach when it comes to cooldowns? Put simply, you have more buttons to push, so you'll push those buttons less often. While in Overwatch, 12 seconds is around the upper limit when it comes to cooldown length, in Rivals it nearly seems like the average. Now, a lot of the time, it's not some massive problem and is quite simply warranted. Take Cloak and Dagger and their form switching. If their cooldowns were too short, it would be way too hectic swapping between them constantly, and all element of depth to their kit would be removed. And for the strength of their abilities, their cooldowns make perfect sense anyway, they don't need to be touched. And I do need to stress this, I'm not trying to imply that longer cooldowns should be eradicated, not at all. But there is definitely a point where it just feels
There's no practical use in terms of design for making the cooldown longer is the problem. It is not helping in terms of anything apart from percentage win rates and making the character more clunky.
Off. I mean, take one of my personal favorites, Winter Soldier. His dash is 12 seconds. Now it does have...
Yeah, the MOBAs were based off the Brood War mod, yeah.
A solid damage and more notably CC component to it, but
I appreciate your breakdown of Lifeweaver, but unfortunately, all Lifeweaver players must die.
several times while playing him, it just feels like it should be back up. And that's ignoring how it doesn't actually let Bucky reach most high grounds, so you'll try to use it for mobility, fail just because it won't give you the boost that you need, and then you're stuck without it for the next 12 seconds. Or we can go with an even more egregious example. Why not take a look at Moon Knight and the 15-second cooldown he's got on his grapple?
Just because you have a lot of other stuff to use doesn't mean you're engendered to use the stuff aggressively because you have a lot of stuff to press, right? Each of the individual components are necessary for the main fight in terms of combos and other stuff like that. So despite the fact that you have like 6 different buttons that all have a cooldown of like 12 or 15 seconds, you don't want to press any of them until you hit them all at once and do a combo.
No, this has nothing to do with balance or the power of the ability. This just makes no sense. Moon Knight should be jumping across the battlefield, constantly attaining different angles, and this just limits him. This style of cooldown is seen not across the entire cast, but the majority of it.
It's just bad
Rivals
design.
characters tend to have a lot of abilities, and by extension, longer cooldowns on them. Like I already said, it's a more buttons to push.
Map design is not designed around the heroes like in Overwatch. Yeah, Overwatch is a very simple thing where like different heights are based purposely in the map design in terms of different heroes. Like it's done very intentionally. Like if you have like basically you can do the basis of how high things are based on loads of different things. Elysium jump is one big thing. Elysium jump while not moving, just holding the spacebar, gets to a lot of high grounds perfectly. That's intentional. Baptiste jump is also really important in terms of how high you go. Things like wall climbs, like walls are intentionally not made higher than the average wall climb goes. There's loads of different things in Overwatch that are map design based on the characters, yeah.
Push that are pushed less often deal. When, in my opinion, less buttons to be pushed, which are pushed more often, is a more interesting gameplay loop and philosophy. At the end of the day, less is often more. And because
yeah, but if you had less buttons, you'd have to actually make the buttons incorporate it into the actual gameplay loop. And in order to do that, you'd actually have to be good at making a video game. So, yeah.
As these longer cooldowns, the more interesting and fun parts of characters can't be accessed for particularly long intervals. Luna Snow beams, Loki clone swapping, Emma Frost diamond form are all 15-second cooldowns. Now it can be argued that they need to be that long in order to actually be balanced. What have I been talking about for the last 9 minutes? If an ability is too strong and can only be balanced with a long cooldown,
it doesn't even balance it. Not practically, it just changes the percentage win rates of the hero around in messy fights, which does it by very small amounts to make the character disproportionately clunky in response to it.
Ability is probably too powerful. I mean, Iron Man Overdrive, Loki's Stones, Rocket's Revive...
No. I heard that the characters all being overpowered was fun. I heard that was fun and engaging and interesting and wacky and goofy, and that's why we like rivals in the first place. I thought that was a great thing.
Rock Soul Bomb.
I'm sure it doesn't cause problems.
All of these have such long cooldowns because they're such powerful abilities. But if they're so powerful, why are they basic abilities? I'm not trying to say that all cooldowns should be lowered so that cooldown management becomes easier. That would be beyond stupid. And even if
No, they don't need to be lowered. They just need to make the characters properly.
Were brought down, your cooldown management would still be important. I'm just saying that using cooldowns as the final barrier of balance is not the way to go. Like I have said so many times already, if an ability is too strong, a long cooldown will not prevent it from being too good. And even with the longer cooldowns, the lower frequency of it happening doesn't make anyone feel better. Strange needs his portal to get some level of value, or else all he's done is reduce the lifespan of his CPU. And this has done absolutely no favors when it comes to the fact that the ability just goes on cooldown if you cancel it. So if you're trying to set up a little portal cheese at the beginning of a game and move just a bit too far down the map, 3-minute cooldown right there. It's not fun to the user to have an ability that only gets used once every other fight. Look no further than Mercy Resurrection. If you're trying to play Mercy at all optimally, you cannot be rezzing whichever soul you see first.
If it's that overpowered that you can't balance it by like having it available in every fight, then it should be an ultimate. Like, what are we doing? What are we talking about?
We've all seen or even been rezzed on tank in a 1v5 situation, resulting in an immediate death and who knows how much ult charge to the enemy team, which means Resurrection as an ability is one that you will only see 4, 5, maybe 6 times per 10 minutes, effectively meaning that
what we did is very simple. We tied res to Valkyrie, so when you activate Valkyrie, you give 1 charge of res, which makes perfect sense as a factor of the hero design. It needs to have res in it, and also it gives more front-loaded power to an ultimate that's very backloaded in terms of the amount of power it gets you. It makes perfect sense to do it that way. But meanwhile, like the live games here, like, well, you can res, but you can only res when you're playing aggressively, and if you're playing defensively and the enemy team pushing into you, the res button is completely useless. And if you're in Brawl, it's a lot less useful. If you're in Poke, it's a lot more useful. You have to deal with all of these problems. All you have to do is make it so that res is part of the ultimate, because honestly, it's one of those things that I think can be balanced as an ability, but probably shouldn't or probably can't be in a particularly healthy way. At least I can't find a way to do it.
half of Mercy's kit isn't being accessed for the majority of the game. Cooldown management is certainly a valuable and fun skill to have present in a game, but when you end up with an ability that barely gets consistent use, it only hampers and limits the experience of the player while removing the chance for the cooldown to actually be managed in an active way. And this does
Let's not talk about Raccoon Beacon. Yeah, I love it when Rocket puts down his beacon of 3/4 of the power of his kit that instantly revives someone. Really good, really good. Engaging gameplay. What, jump packs and armor packs? Oh, well, we don't get them because they're they're Narnia in the fuck off corner of the map. Dude, like, just because the beacon has to be, like, safe, not be destroyed. It's like, they're just so badly designed, they're so badly tied into the rest of the kit, and they do it by just balancing, by increasing the cooldown? Like, why?
The complete
it's just bad craftsmanship.
When a cooldown is so short that players never consider when to use it and just throw it out as often as they can, it just ends up kind of bland. Look at old iterations of Zenyatta's Discord Orb. You could just throw this onto anyone. No cooldown, any target, as many times as you wanted.
Well, the intention was it was more about where you were placing it than where you were than when you were placing it. I do think I'd like Discord Orb more if it was toned down slightly to like 20%-ish, and then you could keep it on the target for a little bit longer. Currently in its mode, I feel like it kind of like was balanced by necessity for the most part more than anything else.
Once they added the inability to apply Discord...
Think about the lore accuracy. Oh, yeah, sorry, I forgot. Strange can only portal every now and again in the comic books, right?
to a target who just removed it for 6 seconds, a significant amount more thought went into when to use Discord instead of just having it on the tank 24/7. Or on the other side of this same short spectrum, Tracer Blinks being 3 seconds. While yes, that is a really short cooldown, it also fits perfectly with her fast-paced nature.
Yeah, it's more a 9-second cooldown for her full mobility, to be honest. So it's not really 3 seconds because it's piecemeal into what she can do.
Duels with the Tracer happen in just a few seconds, so if a Tracer wastes all her blinks, that effect will be felt because of how squishy she is.
Yeah, it's more cooldown and re-engagement.
And its cooldown can only ever be used in macro and never in micro, it should probably be reconsidered. Coming back to Bap's immortality field that I mentioned near the beginning, you're more than likely only seeing one of these used per fight.
And look, it's used to deny something, yay!
That infrequency doesn't change the fact that it can be immensely frustrating to play into, and even for the Bap player, it won't be the most engaging.
I bet you this video has like 5 views.
Will naturally hold some level of bias to save the
because it's actually
for
right
better play.
About game design.
Or better yet, look at another fruity Overwatch character I've already mentioned in Lifeweaver and Grip. The exact same idea applies. There are possible saves for this that would somewhat allow for the power and long cooldown to stay, while giving the player a little more action and use cases for their ability. Imagine if Life Grip had its cooldown reduced if being used on a full HP target, which would then allow it to be used for positioning without feeling like a waste. This is another method to offset the limitations of a long cooldown, giving players methods to lower it themselves, or conditional cooldowns, but it's an extreme case-by-case basis. An easy example of it in action is Overwatch and Venture. Their drill dash cooldown has double reduction when underground, effectively halving it, allowing it to be used for mobility and disruption without feeling like it should be saved.
So clunky, man. Like after playing our Venture, this Venture feels so clunky.
For when Venture is above ground for better damage. And just returning to Rivals, these long cooldown theories get worse with team-ups. Most tack on an extra ability to one or more characters, which nearly always have a 20 to 30 second cooldown between them and are often incredibly powerful abilities. So even though Iron Man would probably only get 1 Gamma Overdrive per fight, that doesn't make it any more fun to deal with as an enemy. And as the Iron Man player, being locked out of your strongest state, or better put, your most fun state for 20 seconds, every time you use it, it doesn't lead to the most
It's almost like having an enjoyable experience is a zero-sum game when doing stuff to other people takes away their joy.
fun decisions on when to use
30
it.
second Spider-Man instant kill button. It's just fun and engaging gameplay, guys. What are we talking about? It's just so much fun, right?
Although that team up literally just got removed as I wrote this. And all this has been ignoring the issue that I have with a lot of team ups just being bloat to already bloated kits, but that's a different discussion entirely, and either way the ultimate combo ones are cool, these ones
Now the right evil players are gonna hate you.
Like all things in a game, cooldowns are a balancing act, but I
Don't touch my perfect game! Don't touch it!
they're even more difficult than most. Too short and not a single thought is ever put into when the ability is used. Too long and you have the reverse. Too much thought gets put in on when to use an ability that is probably too powerful for its own good. They demand to be in the Goldilocks zone, and while tweaks are needed to them at times, depending on how a character is doing in any given moment, they should never be the primary balancing method you use to rein people back in.
And while I was talking about cooldowns, the government
Christ.
imposed a new one on me. I am in prison.
Why has he got skits surrounding his videos? Okay. Honestly, really fucking good. 33k views. Man, this guy's definitely better at content than me somehow, despite having cringe in his videos.